welcome to Small Business Breakthroughs presented by the Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College. My name is Mike Bowers. I am the Center Director for the Small Business Development Center here, and I am emanating from the Columbus State campus. And as we like to say, it's a great day to be at Columbus State. So we're excited to have everybody here today. And we're excited about today's guest, and we're excited about today's topic. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence and AI use for small business owners. We've actually had a couple of these that we've done recently, but I think there's a lot of stuff obviously going on, and there's a lot of people with different expertise, and I'd like to bring those folks to the small business community so that they have an idea of what we're doing, what's available, different things like that. So today we are going to be joined by James Ross III, and James is the head of Legacy AI Solutions. It's his organization, and we are really happy to have you here. James and I had a really great conversation leading up to this, and I think that we'll be able to provide some really good information. Thanks to everybody who is here today for the live recording of this session. Note that this will be posted along with the other 60 or so small business breakthroughs that we've had over the years on our YouTube channel, which is Ohio SBDC, one word. And you'll be able to go there and find all of the small business breakthroughs, as well as some of the shorts from some of our more recent programs that could be a benefit for you in other areas also. It's interesting, James, one of the sessions that we did in August of last year, I think it was last year, was on AI, and that was kind of the first AI session I did. And then since then, it's just a flood of everything. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. James, if you want, why don't you kind of share with everybody your background and your kind of entrepreneurial journey, we say the origin story, etc. And for anybody who's in the chat who is interested, feel free to put any questions or comments or anything into the chat. We will watch that and we will do our best to answer those questions. James?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And first off, thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak to all of your listeners and your audience. It's a pleasure to be here. As Michael said, my name is James Ross, founder of Legacy AI Solutions, right here in Columbus, Ohio. And I've spent just over 23 years in corporate operations. That includes some time with Walgreens and time with Amazon One Medical, all on the healthcare side, and director level roles. And I've run several businesses with my wife, who is a family and marriage therapist. So I said all that to say is I know what it's like to wear either one, wearing several hats. When you talk about an entrepreneurial journey. So really about a year ago, I pursued getting the certification in AI use to help support running the businesses that my wife and I run together. And, it worked out so well for us, saved us so much time, helped us become so much more efficient. I said, wow, this will be a great opportunity to help others that run small businesses or, even larger businesses, organizations, et cetera. And that's really what led me to birthing my company, founding my company, Legacy AI Solutions. So I like to think of myself as an operator first. I've always been an operator throughout my career, entrepreneur second, and I would say an AI guy third. So I'm not a techie. And so I speak the language of non-techies when we talk about how do you leverage AI in your business. And so that's one of the things that I'm super, super passionate about. I specialize in helping small businesses, now working with educational institutions, school districts, and government agencies. So but my passion definitely lies helping small businesses. And it's been a journey. I run a few small businesses today, with my wife, but we went through trial and error where we launched businesses, closed businesses, launched businesses, and closed businesses. I'm sure some of you all can probably relate to that. But what I can say is that this evolution of AI as it sits today, Mike, you said you guys were did a session about a year ago. So much has changed just in the last 12 months, and even the last 3 months. And so I like to look at it as a tool that is a great equalizer. So a lot of us are really accustomed to getting things done with limited resources, and I just think AI is um, a really great opportunity to help equalize you. So
Great. We have actually a question already, so you did a great job with the intro. Um, Janelle is wanting to know kind of what AI certifications you to receive and
I can share the information with you, Michael, to share it with the group afterwards. But it's in a CPT accredited program where you go through a training program, and then you have to do a capstone at the end to prove your knowledge base that you've learned throughout the course of the program, which I really liked because there's a lot of folks, if you all are keeping up with AI, that say they can do certain things, but when it comes down to it, they really can't. And so I thought having a program that actually teaches you things and then holds you accountable and actually have you complete a big project that you're graded on in order to get that certification is more aligned with me building trust with businesses that I work with and individuals. So
yeah, I know that we have done a lot of our team has done certifications through Google on Gemini.
hmm
I think some of us have done some ChatGPT certifications, things of that nature. So there's a lot out there. And if you're kind of tied in with LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of LinkedIn learning information there on AI. But I found that that certification through Google on Gemini was pretty good. I mean, we also have done a couple of other ones that were pretty, you know, super high level or, didn't give you a whole lot, but I thought that one was pretty decent.
yeah, Claude has a good one as well for any Claude users out there. So they have some really good um, tutorials and certifications that you can go through as well that are really helpful.
Great, great. I've also put James's organization's website in there, and James's LinkedIn is also into the chat. And Tanya just put our Google AI Essentials training link into the chat also. So a lot of good stuff there. So let's kind of jump in. It's interesting too, because we didn't really talk too much about this. You talked about a lot of the businesses that you and your wife have done, your ups and downs, your journey, different things like that. I mean, um, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me a little bit more about how you've kind of navigated that, as well as, your traditional director level positions.
Yeah, so first of all, it's a lot of early mornings and late nights. So I know some entrepreneurs like to take the approach to say, "Hey, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to leave my 9 to 5," and that's great, but that just doesn't work for me. I actually like my 9 to 5, and actually working for a company like Amazon, it actually gives me a upper hand as far as being staying close to AI developments and things like that on a grander scale, right? And so it's been a great balancing act. Like I said, it's a lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights. But to answer your question more specifically, I think leveraging the use of AI has helped me automate a lot of things on my personal business side that helps me not have any conflicts with my 9 to 5. And
Okay.
so talk about um, we talk about simple things like, following up with potential clients, right? Setting up automations that can do automatic messaging for you. So that way you don't have to manually do things. You don't miss phone calls, leveraging AI agents. I know we'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but having systems in place that I've built with AI tools to help me run the business when I'm actually working my 9 to 5. And a big piece of that is communication, because communication takes up a ton of time for any business owner, whether that's phone, communication, email communication, text message communication, and having really knowing your business, putting the system in place that can handle some of those pieces really helps filters out some of that noise, so you are able to focus on other high value things throughout the day.
Yeah. That sounds great. So we're going to take a little bit of step back, get started here. One of the things you talked about, and this kind of actually bleeds into what we talked about on the certifications, but um, talk a little bit about your thoughts on small business owners building this AI literacy, really trying to get an understanding of this so they can make decisions that they need to make.
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I would say there's a lot of tools out there, right? There's a lot, and it can be very overwhelming. I would say, I always tell folks, just pick one tool. Don't try to learn five tools all at once, right? And literacy is not the same as using a tool. So when I talk about literacy, it's me knowing how to evaluate the output, spotting what's fake, what's not real, knowing what to use it, when not to use things, and not just using the tool per se. But I would say start with just one tool, maybe two, and just start with something that's like low stakes. So maybe, if you like if you prefer Chat GPT, or if you prefer Claude or Gemini, whatever your um, LLM of choice is, maybe start with helping it draft an email for you, summarizing a document, um, something simple like that, right? Before you actually start trying to do bigger things. And it's the easiest way to learn something is just start doing it, right? We can tell you how you can use something or how you should use something, but until you just get your hands a little bit dirty and just start playing around with it yourself to actually do something meaningful, I think is the best way to start. So just keeping it simple, picking one tool and actually using it for something that's low stake, that won't be detrimental if, you don't know how to use it properly or, to give you grace and so you can actually learn how to use it properly. So,
So do you see the regular LLMs, the Chat GPTs, the Claudes, the Groks, and things of that nature? Um, if I'm a small business owner, you're saying I should be able to take that some derivation of that and actually implement it in here. So there's not I'm sure there's customized stuff that can be done, or maybe it's customized with those tools. What's your thoughts on that? Mhm.
yeah. So, and actually, I've worked with a few businesses on this. So one of the biggest challenges I've seen is managing email
Yeah.
for businesses. You miss emails, you're slow to reply, and that can have a very big impact if you are slow to respond, or what I call speed to lead, right? If somebody's reaching out to you and they need services and you're slow to get back to them, that could be, you can miss out on revenue, right? And so
Mhm.
one of the easy ways to leverage AI is to help you get organized, get your email organized, right? And that does require you connecting. Like let's say if you had a Gmail or whatever your business account is, um, let's say you connected it to like a Claude. Claude can actually go in and evaluate your emails for the last 90 days and recommend 3 to 4 folders want to help you triage those emails so that you don't have to go through an inbox that has 1,000 emails. You can go through those 4 folders ranked by priority, right, to help you respond quicker. So that's one example of how you could embed one of these LLMs that you prefer into something as simple as your email and not drafting emails, not sending emails. It's just helping you get organized, right? That's a really easy way to help right out the gate to help leverage one of these tools and embed in your business.
So how does that then tie into kind of the mindset that a business owner needs to have? So say we've got a traditional kind of Main Street type business, and they obviously have computers, they've done stuff, but they really haven't done much with their business doing AI. And you talk about maybe this is a great way to start, just kind of slowly work your way in. But what kind of the mindset do they need to have about expectations around the use of AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would first say, don't use it like a toy.
Mhm.
First of all, that you play with, right? Like treat it like a team member. Like if you actually hired someone to come onto your team, treat it like an executive assistant, a personal assistant that's helping you grow your business, right? Um, I think having that shift in how you view it really that's really the mindset shift that's needed, because a lot of folks are using AI to you know create memes, create pictures, and that's fine. I'm not against that, right? But you're sitting on an opportunity to actually have a real business partner. When you think about as a small business, if you were to hire a social media manager to help you create content, that would probably cost you a few $100. I'm probably being conservative, a month, right? But now that AI tools are here, you can actually train it on your voice. You could, train it on how you like to write, what types of posts you like to post, and then it can actually create that content for you, right? So instead of treating it like a toy or something that's fun to play with, treating it like a business partner and treating it like a new employee that you will hire and train it on what you need it to do in the context of how you work in your business. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. What, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. I mean, what kind of price points are people need to be expecting? So say you're using Claude or you're using ChatGPT or something like that. I know ChatGPT, I believe they've got a $20 a month
Yeah.
price point. Is that something that would be you'd be able to kind of start getting this stuff implemented here? Or are we talking about jumping that up? I don't know what other price points they have.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Michael. So ChatGPT does have that $20 pro plan. Claude does as well, and it's $20 as well. And I think that plan is more than sufficient enough for any business owner. Very small investment, but tons that you can do, tons of value that you can get out of those two platforms alone just for $40 a month.
Okay. Okay, good. Good.
One other thing before you ask the next question, Michael,
Yeah.
on that mindset piece, and I think I shared this with you too, Michael, when we talked the other briefly, is that I think the other mind shift change is thinking about if you all remember, I might be dating myself, but you all remember when Microsoft PowerPoint and Excel and all those things started becoming basic job requirements. I think that's where AI is heading. And so when you think about AI literacy, you think about the use of AI, um, I think that's just going to be a basic requirement. Like, do you know how to use AI? Because if you don't, I think folks that, are still in the workforce that are looking for jobs, et cetera, or even business owners, um, if you know how to use AI, that is great. But if you don't, your competition probably does know how to use it, right? And so I think it's just a core competency that we'll all have to know how to leverage as things continue to progress.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I mean, everything you see, maybe not quite as much now, but I mean, everything you see kind of in the news is that AI is going to kill all the jobs and AI is going to do everything. My thought is, and this even kind of lends back into what you just said, um, for traditional small businesses, it's really about the people. And I was thinking it would be really difficult unless it's, some sort of straight up online business, which is not got a lot of touch anyway, for the typical small business that you're going to find, using AI, understanding AI, and using it to make your business stronger and better and touch your customers, that makes sense. And it may keep you from having to hire a social media manager, may help keep you from having to hire another admin person, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily don't need people to be able to do this. Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that's a great point. And I think back to what I mentioned earlier about leveraging AI to free you up to spend your time on more high value things is going to drive more impact to your business. So in that case, you may have an admin on staff already, right? But if you're using AI to set up systems to answer phones, if that's something you desire, or customer intake, follow-up emails, etc., social media campaigns, something that your admins would normally be doing, Now that that work is taken off their plate, now you could potentially have that admin work on something else that's more valuable, that's going to bring in or bring more impact to the business from a positive perspective, right? More high value tasks versus those everyday mundane tasks that every business has to do, right? It really helps you get out of the weeds. So I think, to your point, I think we will always need people, and I'm a proponent of that. I'm never in the space of saying, "Hey, let's put in AI here so you could save money by firing someone." No, no, let's save money and use the people that we have to upskill them and help them develop and help the business in another way to help generate more revenue, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the small business stuff. I mean, obviously you got the huge tech companies, that may not have to hire programmers or this, that, or the other, and that's a whole another thing. But I mean, for the person that, like I said, we're at Columbus Day, we're downtown, person now got a business out here on Long Street or on Broad Street or something like that. I mean, that's something that they can leverage their people
Right.
to attain higher levels and still do their
Absolutely.
jobs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think, kind of along that same line, what do you think of a realistic daily or weekly workflow where IA handles a lot of these repetitive tasks? What's that can look like?
Yeah. When I personally work with businesses, I'm usually looking to hear the pain. Like what is taking up the most time? What is
Right.
the thing that they avoid? And I'm looking to, and it's really like what I call my 80/20 rule. So what is the repetitive 20% what you do that eats up the 80% of your time? And that could be, you know, outreach, cold outreach, depending on what the business is. It could be creating social media content. That's one thing I've learned with a lot of business owners that I work with. A lot of them don't like social media. They don't like because it's so taxing to have to come up with the content, create the content, produce the content, et cetera, right? And there are a lot of ways that you can now leverage some of these tools that are out there to help streamline and make that more efficient, where you could batch create or even automate some of those things. The customer intake process takes up a lot of time. So depending on what type of business you have, I've worked with tax firms that need folks to fill out certain forms so they understand the type of client before they can book a session with them around their taxes. So being able to automate that versus having to get on the phone and ask those questions and fill out a form, right? It's having systems in place that could produce those questions for you, provide the form for those folks to fill out, and then they send it in, and then it file it wherever you need it to be filed for someone to follow up later, right? And so, that's a simple, process where you can leverage AI. Another example I like to give, and this is personal, my wife and I run a few Airbnbs here in Central Ohio, specifically out in Hocking Hills. And any of y'all familiar with well water systems? When you're not connected to the city, you got to have a water pump. And we had some guests checking in on a Friday evening at 4 o'clock, and the water stopped working. And so we were frantically calling around, trying to see what companies were available that can go out and take a look at it, right? And so we called the first company, nobody answered the phone. We called a second company, nobody answered the phone. We called a third company, they answered, they were able to go out, and then they went out and installed a $3,000 water pump over the weekend. So my point here, when you talk about Michael, about workflow, um, this is a great example of where you could where the company that actually got the $3,000 job, it wasn't because they were great at what they do. They just answered the phone, right? Right? Because I just needed someone out there ASAP. And so my point of saying all of that is one of the most beneficial tools that I've seen personally that has helped small businesses is leveraging a voice AI assistant that can answer phone calls for you. So, like in the HVAC industry, plumbing, depending on what your business is, those are usually hands-on where they're actually in their business working. They can't answer the phone all the time. But a missed phone call could be a $3,000 job, right? And by leveraging the AI voice assistant that can answer phones for you, answer questions for that potential client for you because it understands your business. It's been programmed to know all the services, all the things that you offer. It can actually book an appointment for you, never miss a call, and then send you an updated email on that conversation. You would never miss a call ever again. And so think about how much business you could earn by just answer by answering the phone, never missing a call. So I love to give that example when you talk about a simple workflow. It doesn't have to be anything complex. That's just implementing AI component into your business that could really drive massive revenue for you.
Okay, so that kind of is a good segue then. So let's talk a little bit about AI agents, which is kind of
Yeah.
what does that. Um, and the example that you gave is a great example. This is a problem that's been around forever. I mean, I've been doing this for a super long time, and it's always been, how are you going to answer the phone when you're working in your business and doing different things like that? And how do you leverage, I'm a small business owner. I want to create a agent to come in here and do this. I mean, do I need to hire somebody? Do I have to hire you? I have to hire somebody to put this in? Is this something I can do myself? Is this something that AI can kind of help me? I've got Gemini, they can do it, or Claude or something like that. How does this need to work for the small business owner who is just at zero right now using this?
So when you talk about implementing the AI agent,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So I guess let me take a step backwards and kind of talk about what an AI agent is.
great.
So, simple definition, if you think about a chatbot, that essentially answers questions. An agent takes multi-step. It has the knowledge like a chatbot, but it actually takes multi-step action. It can actually act on that knowledge on your behalf. It can look things up. It can fill out steps. It can do research for you. Essentially, it can complete a task from end to end. So that's the fundamental difference between a chatbot and an AI agent. So I just want to make sure we kind of clarify that first.
That's
Uh,
great.
but but to your question, Michael, um, an AI agent is absolutely something that you could leverage on the $20 plan in ChatGPT and Claude. And what a simple way to do that when you talk about end to end, if I'm a new business or if I'm an established business, they have agent functions or research modes, which is essentially the agent function in ChatGPT and Claude. Research mode in Claude, AI agent mode in ChatGPT. But you can go in and you could just go in that mode and you can give it a prompt and say, "Hey, I run you know, I'm a realtor in Columbus, Ohio, and I typically work on the north side of the city. Can you run comps for me on 3 bedroom, 2 baths on the north side of the city?" And it will go out and do that work for you, right? From end to end and come back and give you a report of all the zip codes for all the comps on all 3 bedroom, 2 bath households on the north side of the city that's available that it can pull from public records. So that's one example of how you could use the AI agent function within one of those LLMs as a business owner today. Um, and again, it's you don't have to be a professional prompter, right? You don't have to. It's really if you're able to talk to it, just like we're talking right now, and actually give it the context of what you're looking for, and then prompting it to say, "Hey, if there's information that you need that you feel like you need in order to complete this task, ask me 5 questions," right? And so it'll ask you those questions if it is missing information, and you'll supply those answers, then it can go out and do that work, and then come back and give you a well laid out report on whatever that task is that you actually instructed it to go out and do. So that's one example. Um,
Right.
the other example, like I just gave around the voice AI agent, now that is something people can do themselves, but there's a lot of nuances with that, right? So you have to know what type of platform to build it in. You also have to take into consideration how to connect your current phone system and how to route things to calendars. Also consider the volume of calls that you may receive because that's an additional cost. So there's a lot of nuances. And my recommendation, if anyone is thinking about that route, definitely pursuing a professional to help work through what that could look like for your particular business.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at that. It's like an investment. I mean,
Absolutely.
you might be able to do some derivation of this, but if you really want to do it right, it needs to represent your business. So putting an investment, doing some things here, getting it set to where it actually does what you want to do. So I didn't ask you this question. I didn't prep on this question, but obviously, if anybody's going to do this, they're going to want to hire you. But I mean, if somebody's in here and they're looking for somebody to help them with their AI, what do they need to be thinking about? And I guess you could ask AI, what questions do I need to ask a consultant? But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts about what should somebody uh, like yourself that can come in and help a small business? What should that small business be looking for?
Yeah. I would say, there's a lot of people, in all transparency, there's a lot of folks out here that claim to um, know how to do certain things. So what
Mhm.
I would say is, just for me, if I was looking, like take me out of the picture right now. If I running my business that I run right now, if I was pursuing someone that I needed help, I want to know that first of all, because implementing tools is not always the answer, right? Just if you already have a problem, if you if you if you put AI on top of a system that's already sloppy, it's just going to expose it even more. It's just going to overcomplicate it. And so my first thing to answer your question is, do they understand business? Do they understand how to run business? Do they understand people? Right? Because if you're going to bring in AI capabilities, you have to know how, you need people to adopt that, right? You don't want to pay for something and then nobody uses it, right? And so understanding business, do they understand business? Do they understand how to, um, you know, engage people so that the adoption is high on it? And then thirdly, do they understand um, how to support solving the biggest pain points and not just selling you something for the sake of selling, right? Are they actually really helping you solve a real problem? Because a good consultant will tell you, hey, this is probably not a good fit and I can't help you. Like, like I want that kind of honesty, right? I don't want you to sell me something just because you can sell me something, right? I want to make sure there's value because, it's a long-term relationship. And so understanding business, understanding people, and then the capability around the skill set that they have, right? So if they understand business, they understand how to work with people, and depending on what their focuses are, because some folks in AI, they only focus on training people how to do things themselves. Some people actually focus on implementing things for businesses and vice versa. So I would say those are the most crucial. There's a lot of people out there that can do the work. I would say those are the things that stick out to me. Understanding business, understanding people, and are they really helping you solve your biggest pain points?
So let's take a step. So you talked about an agent to help do some things. Let's talk a little bit more about the agent for answering your phones, manage your calendar, doing all that. It's interesting because again, I've been doing this for a long time, so it was always the virtual assistant that you could get that was 4 states away, and they were able to come in and do all of
Yeah.
that stuff. And now we can kind of create this ourselves. And how do you kind of think through that? How do you think about actually pulling that together? I think you mentioned you probably should get some support on that. But how do you do that? There's another question in the chat along that same lines. Is there a way in that system to kind of start to screen out some of the scam calls and some of the spam and things of that nature?
So you're saying if it's a way for a business to get a lot of scam calls, and is there a way for the AI agent to filter out some of those scam
Yeah,
calls?
that's part of the question. The other question is really kind of the bigger picture on setting these types of agents up for managing your business, because that's important. But then one of the questions here is specifically on scam calls. Mm.
Yeah. So as far as setting it up for your business, um, I would first want to understand before you even think about setting up is what is the value of a missed call, for example. Um, what is the process from end to end from when you acquire a client or a customer into what does that whole workflow look like, right, from beginning to end? And does it even make sense to have someone answering the phones, right? So if I think about myself going back to the realtor example, like that is a um, maybe that's not a great example because that's an industry that really values the personal touch, human touch. But sometimes realtors are tied up doing showings and things like that, right? Showings, they might be in the midst of walking, doing things with clients, and they can't get to their phones, right? But again, that I don't know what the value of that is to a realtor. Someone in that industry would probably know. But going back to my original comment, is really understanding what does the acquisition look like from beginning to end in your business, and then putting a value on a missed call, like the speed to lead. Not just a missed call, but there's research out there that shows, if not only if you miss a call, but how long does it take you to get back to someone that called your business? The more time that goes by, they've already moved on and called two or three other businesses. So I think really understanding the type of industry that you're in, um, the value of a missed call or a delayed response to a call. I think really understanding what that equates to in dollars for your business. And then you start looking at, okay, what does it cost me to invest in an AI voice receptionist that can answer those phone calls for my business? And then we look at the return on that investment to say, okay, if I put this in and I never miss a call and I can respond immediately, and it's absolutely well worth it, right? So I think I like to put numbers to things and not necessarily. I like data, right, to help make decisions, and so I would say look at data from that standpoint. Understand your industry, understand what the value of a missed or delayed call, follow up call means to your business, and then look at what it would cost to instill or implement a voice AI reception. It's not very expensive, depending on what you want to do. Again, as things continue to develop with AI, costs continue to come down as well. So,
So, I don't know if I missed it or didn't hear. So I know we talked a little bit about it. I mean, are there systems in those to deal with spam calls and stuff?
yeah, so if you are getting calls, because it does track every single phone call that you get in from an audit perspective. So if you do know, just like our cell phones, right? If we get phone calls, you can block certain numbers. It probably won't stop everything, but you will be able to, as it gets more experience, you would be able to filter out some of those calls.
Right. And I'm assuming is that whatever the mechanism is for those calls to be forwarded to you or the whatever it happens to happen, um, you'd be able to probably make some determination. This is probably not a real call, and you just kind of move forward. Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like on my website, I have an AI agent on my website. So I'm on this call right now. If someone wanted to go on there and they wanted to get some questions around how I can help support them, they can actually call the AI receptionist. It could answer questions. It can qualify folks. So if folks are ready to invest now, I'll get an email urgently saying, hey, follow up with this person. They want to invest in their business in the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So it helps prioritize who I need to call back and how quick I need to call them back. So you'll be amazed at how detailed you can get and how you could cater it to what your business needs are.
Okay. So we've got about 15 minutes, well, 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And I got three things that I need to kind of touch on. So, one, you talked about um, AI kind of being implemented and being able to get into your system. So it's reading your email, getting to know your business, your calendar, and they're obviously going to have to be able to do this to deal with what we just talked about. Um, Talk about security as it relates to that, because there's a lot of, I would think there's some level of security risk here that we're going to have to deal with, and obviously that has to be baked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we're at the end talking about security. That's usually how I start out. Usually any
Mhm.
workshops that I do, any time, any work that I do with businesses, the first thing that I always talk about is security. And
Right.
so the number one thing I always tell folks is, just make sure you understand how data is being stored in these systems, that these tools that you use, right? As far as their policies around how they store the data, et cetera. Um, that's super important, especially if you're a business and you're leveraging AI to run your business. It's always super helpful or super smart to have some sort of disclaimer. Just like you have a privacy policy on your website, it's always good to be upfront with folks and clients to say, "Hey, we do use AI to to do our business," just so that they're aware of that. But from a security standpoint, always tell people one of the first settings that you want to look at in Claude or ChatGPT is I don't want to help train the model for anyone. There's billions of other people that can help do that. So essentially, I turn that setting off. Um, I don't want any information that I put into the system to be used to train the model to do anything. Right. Number two, um, multi-factor authentication. So hackers are out here strong, right? So in ChatGPT, there's a setting in there for you to go in and turn on multi-factor authentication. That just gives you an extra layer of security in case someone does, God forbid, gets access to your password. There's still another level of security that they will need to bypass in order to get into your account. So you want to turn that on. In Claude, they don't have a multi-factor authentication. It's connected to your email sign in. So you probably should have a multi-factor authentication on your email login as well. So those are probably the first two things that I always tell people that you want to change from a settings perspective right out the gate. Um, Number two, always keep your personal and your business accounts separate when you use these tools. So if you're actually using AI to run your business, make sure that you have a business email account associated with that account when you're actually using it for business purposes. You never want to mix the two together. Um, and then thirdly, sensitive information. So if you think, I work in healthcare, so always think about HIPAA. Like anything that's personal, identifiable information, you don't want to put any of those types of things into the AI tool. Um, if you want to put things in there and make it generic, I always give examples, like that. Hey, I have trying to think of a good example. Instead of putting my name, social security number, all my financials in for my business, you can make that sound very generic and not put any business name. You can put real numbers in there, but make sure there's not being able to be linked back to a specific entity, if that makes sense. So there's ways around it. So just being very thoughtful about how you put the information in and not just, download all files that you have and just throw it in there. Right.
Right. Right. No, that's huge. I mean, I think it's a big deal, and I like the idea of having something that they can see that says, "Hey, this is kind of what we're going to be doing," and
Right.
because again, that way you're staying away from, "Hey, they're using my data for this. I didn't even say anything," or something like that. I mean, you
Right.
may not be using the data, but if they think you're using the data, if you've got some sort of disclaimer, that helps. So, and just keeps everything clear. Um, I want to talk about, maybe you can answer this all in the same question. So, um, a lot of people talk about AI for marketing in small business. So, whether that's creating marketing materials or other things. So we have that piece. And then adjacent to that is using AI to actually do market research for you to be able to understand your market, so that when you create these materials or whatever, it's going to the right audience.
Absolutely. So I can answer that both of those questions in the same. So this is a great way to use the AI agent function to do research for you. So let's say you want to do a social media campaign to help promote your business. Um, and it's, maybe Black Friday's coming up, right? And everybody runs social media campaigns around that time, right? You can actually use the AI agent function to go out and research, um, Instagram, Facebook, the most successful and highly engaging Instagram and Facebook accounts that have done that runs ads or run promos around Black Friday. Put it in a report to say, hey, these are all the best attributes from these different types of campaigns, and these are the things to stay away from. And based on your business, it could create a social media plan based on that information that wouldn't copy what they do, but it could absolutely tweak um, your approach to your social media campaign based on successful businesses that are similar to yours that have already done it. So you don't have to sit in a room and create things from scratch, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you can absolutely, as a business owner, you may not have a clue about social media. You can use the AI agent function to go out and do the research for you and come back and give you a list of competitors that are really good at it and take out the best parts of what they do and apply it to your business as it makes sense to your business to help you create a successful campaign just as well as they did moving forward. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, as a lot of people are thinking about using AI to do these things. And I think Tanya Wilson's on here tonight, and she is one of our marketing experts here for our team. She does marketing training and different things like that. And one of the things she always talks about is being able to understand your market so that you can actually promote
Absolutely.
your market and market to your market, et cetera. Um, I think there's a lot of things that AI can do to help, and I think it's important to understand that. But if you're just creating flyers using AI and you don't know who you're sending it to, then
Right.
yeah, you have nice flyers, but you're probably not going to have a lot of impact.
Right.
So, um, and then lastly, I just really want to take a couple of minutes here just to let people talk about, using AI to build my website and stuff like that. I mean, how does that realistically work for a small business or local business that, I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a programmer.
Yeah. So this is probably one of the most advanced things that I love about AI. So if you all remember, if you need a new website built, how much does that cost? If you got a developer to do that, probably a couple $1,000s is my
Uh,
guess.
Mine costs more than that, but we can go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. So it could be very expensive. Now with the advancement of AI, you can use different platforms with what they call it vibe coding. That's essentially prompting um, a platform, telling it what you want, how you want a website built in a chat function, and it'll just go out and build it for you. So imagine you talking to Chat GPT, you say, hey, I want a web. Actually, you find a website that you like, you put that website in there and say, hey, I really like this website. Um, and build me a first draft of this website that would make sense for my business. And then, ask me any questions that it needs to help fulfill that task. So it may ask you what your brand colors are. So long story short, there's platforms called like Lovable.dev, um, Base 44, where you can pretty much just prompt it just like you would ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And you can actually have a website built from beginning to end in about 5 to 10 minutes. Um, you know, all by paying your monthly subscription of these platforms, which is
Yeah.
under $100. So that's one of the easiest ways. And if you need to make small advancements, it's just another prompt to say, hey, connect this button to this intake form. It can connect that button to that intake form for you. You don't have to be a techie. You don't have to be a developer. If you know how to talk and tell it what you want, and what to change, you can build a website in a couple hours to your liking. So
Yeah. And I was wrong. I have one more question, and you
yeah.
just brought it to me. And this could be probably a brief answer, but you talked about prompting earlier.
Mhm.
Prompting is really the key to making AI work. And you've got to have a level of detail in what you're asking them to do. And maybe you do it, you get what you're getting, and then you can adjust there or, whatever. But you've got to be able to ask the right questions and you've got to be able to say the right stuff when you're prompting. So any quick takes on prompting that you wanted to allude to?
Yeah, yeah. Quick thing on that. And when a couple years ago, when ChatGPT first came out, prompt structure was super important. Not so much today with the advancements in the intelligence that has been updated with. So really, if you are a talker, or if you're someone to be able to say, "Hey, explain exactly what you want," instead of you actually typing in ChatGPT or whatever system you use, there's a little microphone on there. If you just click on that microphone and you just talk to it, and I'll give you an example. Hey, I gave this example to Michael. I own a food truck, for example, and I've got Taco Tuesday coming up next Tuesday, and I want to run a promotion. Instead of typing in and saying, "Hey, create me 7 days of um, create me a social media post for Taco Tuesday next week," that's a very generic prompt. But if I talk to it, hit the mic, and I say, "Hey, there's the Columbus Food Festival happening next week on Tuesday. It coincides with my famous Taco Tuesday promotion that I like to do on my tacos. And you help me write 7 days of content that compels people and it inspires them to think about giving my tacos a try on Tuesday, right? And it will create you a very detailed plan with 7 posts leading up to that day that help support your business. And then once it gives you that first draft, never accept the first draft. That's the key, right? Never accept the first draft. Give it feedback on what you like, what you didn't like, because what you're doing is you're teaching it the next time you put in a prompt, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. So that's super important. Be very detailed. Give it context. Give it feedback on the first draft. Never accept the first draft. Continue to refine it, and you'll be surprised at what kind of quality you can get out of it.
Well, great. Well, great. Well, thank you, James. I really appreciate you being here. I thought this was really, really good. And I think you very well clarified for everybody kind of how you do different things, what they need to be thinking about. And I think it's definitely going to be valuable. We'll have you come back on so that we can have more in-depth conversation around like Skynet, T800 versus the T1000 on Terminator or the metric or the matrix, but otherwise I think we did pretty good today.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the time. Appreciate you having me, Michael.
Great. So again, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks everybody for being here for the recording, and thanks for everybody who watches this. If you go to our website, go to our YouTube channel, which you would search Ohio SBDC, one word, and subscribe to that. We would definitely appreciate it. And we have a lot of great content for small business owners on both our website and on our YouTube channel that can absolutely help you. So thanks everybody for being here. We look forward to seeing you later in the month with our next Small Business Breakthrough. Thank you very much.